You're not stuck. You're just being set up. What's going on, beautiful people? Welcome to another episode of Beyond the Grind.
BTG.
If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. And please don't forget to hit the subscribe button so that you don't miss out on any of our future content. Our podcast is for those who want to go beyond the grind. My name is Kay.
I'm Alan.
And I'm Tosin. And today I've just been thinking a lot about setbacks.
Tosin, you're always thinking.
I know.
Man,
He's a ponderer.
the days. I mean, we get to, as entrepreneurs, as, folks that are ambitious, as folks that are aspiring entrepreneurs, we tend to put ourselves in situations that kind of give us a lot of food for thought, so to speak.
Absolutely.
And this one was kind of one that came up because I've said in previous episodes, a lot of people are always asking me, oh, Tosin, what's the next business? What's the next business? No, it's the next business, But I keep finding it's the same people asking me over and over and over again.
It's me and Kay.
And and what ends up happening is like, I started to think, is it that, are they worried that, they might fail and, having setbacks. And so you don't want to jump into entrepreneurship. I don't know. Right. So it just got me thinking about setbacks and, what can we do? What can we share with folks out there that are in that kind of season of their life? Mm-hmm. They want to jump into a business, but, they're having this fear, this anxiety about all the different what ifs that could happen, including setbacks and failures.
I mean, the reality is setback, especially when you're trying to build a business, is inevitable, right? I remember back in 2010, at this time, a buddy of mine, we came together and we had this brilliant idea. The thought was that we were going to build a business, a tech business that was meant to change everything. It was essentially the Uber for hairstylists. Essentially, we were building a marketplace for hairstylists to be able to offer hair services to folks, right?
Okay.
I remember back then, especially when I was in college, we were broke college students. And I realized that the people that had money were people that either had a job or they were able to offer some sort of hair services. They were able to monetize their skill set, right? And I was like, you know what we can essentially take advantage of that opportunity, put a marketplace out there so that every time somebody book a hair appointment, we get a piece of that.
Of course.
So you know what I did? Obviously I come up from a finance and operation background. Me and my co-founder, he's coming from a sales and marketing background. So we came together and then we ended up finding another guy. He comes from a legal background. So we're like the perfect team, right? We're like, man, we did the business model, did the business plan.
Got the dream team.
We put the whole thing together. But guess what was missing?
What?
A technical founder. Obviously hindsight is 2020, right? How is it possible that you want to build a tech-driven platform but don't have a technical founder? So everything, it's funny now, but back then we were like, oh, we didn't need it,
Or at least a connection to somebody.
No.
Consulting with somebody.
So we reached out to so many folks to kind of get some sort of pricing to see, hey, what is it going to take to build an MVP? And the pricing that we were getting, especially obviously now things are a lot much easier due to AI, but back then
the coin it took
was a lot of money invested into trying to build some sort of MVP. So one thing I realized is that people were charging us too much money and we didn't have the money. When we would go to investors said, well, it sounds nice, but do you have an MVP to show? Mm-hmm. We didn't have any MVP. And we had
What's the MVP again?
Minimum viable product. Mm-hmm. Minimum viable product basically is, what's the least amount of product that you can put out to show that the problem that you're solving is actually viable, right? Yeah. And because we didn't have an MVP, guess what? We couldn't raise money. You can only but so much have so many meetings if you can't put something out there. So I say all that to say it didn't deter me. It just let me know that, look, If you want to start a business, if your business is tech heavy, you need a technical founder. If you're starting some financial business, if you don't have a CFO as a founder, you're missing the boat. So whatever business you want to start, the core team has to have somebody in it that can help bring it home, you know?
So basically what you're saying is there are no failures, right?
No.
It's just feedback.
It's just feedback.
It's just feedback. So there are no failures in life. So it's just feedback.
Yeah.
I think Tony Robbins said something like that too, but I take it the same way. Like, you know, you didn't get where you were in life by being successful at every single thing. You had to fall when you're learning to walk.
Absolutely.
Right? And then you got feedback like, hey, you know, I need to put this other foot before I take off.
Absolutely.
Right? I need to get my balance stable before I start running. So I think that's good. I have a similar story where I had a friend of mine who wanted to start you know him actually. The one where you're always trying to get a hold of.
Name shall not be named.
Right. And he wanted to start a business and he didn't know how to go about it. To make a long story short, the business model was, hey, you know, we live in these apartments over here or whatever, and you know the whole thing. And they had no valet trash. And we were like, why don't we have valet trash? Like this is, and I went ahead and took a poll and found out so many people would like it. And so the business model was to create a valet trash. We did everything. Me, I'm a quick starter. So within 24 hours I can't even sleep. It wasn't even my business, but I couldn't even sleep.
Already doing research.
Typed up the entire business model, laid out the outlook financially and how much it's going to cost. Cause I'm like, if this doesn't make sense on paper, I'm not doing it. Like, so I was like, okay, this is what we need to do. They were like, dang, are you serious? I was like, are you not serious?
Yeah, you guys brought the idea.
Are you not
let's
serious?
go.
And I was like, you know, this is your idea. This is your CEO. You're the CEO of this. I will help guide you. And he was like, you know, there came to a point where he was trying to have votes on stuff. And I was like, no, don't ask me. I give you my opinion. He gives you his feedback, but ultimately you got to figure out which way to go. And he's asking me to make those decisions. And I'm like, look, I didn't have time for this. This is your idea and this is your baby. If I am going to be making the decisions, then they would just be my project.
Essentially.
And I felt like I was guiding them how to run a company, which is fine with me. I always want my friends to succeed. But to make a long story short, it didn't end up succeeding because I feel like some of the pieces we had weren't used to thinking of a business venture in the frame of a corporation, like a business. He learned how to do things better, but we had other people in the business that felt like, oh yeah, I got a homie who could do the marketing and this, that, and that, and that. And I was like, okay, so what's he gonna do? Oh, I don't know. And I was like, aren't you the CMO? Shouldn't you know? And you know what got me was that he almost took offense to it that I was questioning him. And I was like, you know, you made all these promises to someone to do the marketing. He's good at what he does. I'm like, okay, that's your word. We don't discount it, but you have to act. You can't go into a boardroom at Microsoft and be like, I know someone that can do it. They're going to ask you, what is he doing? Paid ads? Is he doing SEO? What is he doing? Like, we need the real numbers. And this became a real thing. And then I told him that, you know, I have my own marketing person. And they were like, well, what does he do? I was like, he does X, Y, and Z. Here's this and what he does. There's no pressure to use him. If you don't use him, he understands. He's pitching to a business, and that's how it should be. But, you know, to shorten the story is it didn't work out because we didn't have enough. The one person that had the sales background and door-to-door sales and all that stuff, he was like, I ain't got time for this. He rolled out. And the other people, I felt like they weren't dialed in and were looking for so much of me to guide the direction.
And you wasn't part of the core team.
No, I was part of the core team, but I felt like I was doing so much of it. And I was at some certain point, I felt like I was training you to do your job, training you to do your job, training you to do your job. And then I had to go
your role.
Yeah. And then I had to go sit and do your job with you and do your job with you and I was like, guys, like, I gotta pull your weight. This ain't a homie hangout. It's a serious. You're trying to be serious about stuff. This is what it takes, and it took a while to get there. But after that, some of them were jaded. Like, man, but this failed. I don't want to do anything. I'm like, that's how I know you're not a real entrepreneur. If you need to understand that this failure, how many, everyone who you see who's successful in business, they probably failed about 1,000 times. Like, so to me, I was like, man, what's the next thing we're going to do? We got to do it better. You learn now how to do this. You learn how to draft emails. You learn how to approach people. You learn how to put a portfolio together. You learn so much, but you're thinking because you didn't get this big home run hit, it's a failure. And I guess even now that they're trying to, one of them understands, the other one, now that they're trying to start other businesses, I feel like they're waiting for the perfect more opportunity and opening to bounce back. And I'm like, you can't expect to bounce back. Oh, this is it. I'm going to bounce back and hit a homer. No. Bouncing back is a series of little tiny things and wins. And you're just waiting for that perfect moment to just knock it out the park. And I'm like, it's okay if that happens, but that's not how business works all the time.
Yeah, team dynamic is always something, especially at the beginning of trying to run a business. But
it's just learning.
I'm sure you guys, because you've been an entrepreneur. I'm sure you've had many
I'm
scenarios.
just listening and absorbing because you guys have said some good points. One thing I want to expand on is that idea that, there's so many failures if you're looking to be an entrepreneur.
Right.
Right.
You have to be okay.
It's not even about the business itself failing. Right. Within a successful business, you can have setbacks and failures.
So many different dynamics.
Maybe you tried to close that next client and you just fell flat on your face, right? You tried to raise that money and you walked into the room and, like you were deer in the headlights. I don't know, right?
Right?
There could be all sorts of different failures. But what we're trying to say here is that all of those things should be used to build you up, right? Because these setbacks, we need to make sure we manage them to where they're not career enders, so to speak.
But how do you manage that? What do you need to? I guess we've all talked, and I've talked a lot. But I guess what would you say that you've learned that would help you manage it so it's not a career setback? If that makes sense.
I mean, do you
go ahead real quick?
So for me, one thing I do for myself and one thing I advise all my clients is to assess the team. Make sure that you have a balanced team, because I know from firsthand that nothing kills a business quicker than the people that are running the business.
Yes.
When you're speaking
that again.
When you're speaking to investors, because your idea is so, it's in the infant stage.
Yeah.
They know that the only people that are going to make it happen are the people running it. That's why they want to know about your background.
Right.
Why are you the one qualified to be able to execute this?
Yeah.
Especially at the beginning stage, people, when you don't have any matrix to show, people invest in you. I mean, people invest in your business because of you, not because of your business.
Exactly.
If that makes sense. So that number one. Number two, I try to figure out a way to put out a minimum viable product out there to quickly validate the idea that I want to put out, because I am of the mindset that if you're gonna fail, you need to fail fast.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Don't drag it too long to the point where you're now so emotionally invested that you can't let it go.
You can't.
So I'm very big on that. And then the last one is just having some retrospective, like learn from your setback. If something, like you mentioned, like it might not be the business, but it might be certain dynamics in your business. Sit back and ask yourself, what could I have done to make this better? Is it because I brought in this person? Well, what can I do to make sure that, if I want to bring somebody into the business, I do it in a way that's better. Like having those really, really tough conversations, in project management, when you have retrospective, they say what's working, what's not working, right? And then what do we need to add to make sure that things are running well. So those three things, they're very important. That's how I at least how I look at it.
So I like it that you took on the startup perspective.
Yes.
I'll just use a general business.
Consultant.
Yeah. General business perspective to where, hey, if you wanted to kind of manage that potential setback or failure, one, if you're about to jump into business, study the industry that you're about to go into. I know a lot of people are hearing, whether it's on social media or you're talking to people, the silver tsunami, there are a bunch of business owners selling and all that stuff. I mean, let's use an example. You're a dentist and
picking on me?
Yeah, I am picking on you. You're a dentist.
You want to tell me?
You wanna, like, hey, I'm a dentist. I work for somebody else, but I want to side hustle on something. Let me go into trucking. Oh my!
Everyone's like, let's go to trucking.
Trucking. That's a specialized industry. Yeah. You can't just go in and think that you can run with the big dogs or even the what do you call it, the small dogs in the trucking world. You've got to study.
Or the little puppies.
Do you even have a CDL? Do you even know what it takes to drive one of these trucks?
What's the overhead if it breaks down?
Correct. Right. So study that industry that you're about to go in. Don't just jump in blindly because somebody gave you financials for a business that's making money and you think, okay, when I buy it, I'm just gonna rinse, repeat, no matter what the business is. No, many of the businesses that you will be jumping into require some kind of specialized skill.
Yep.
I think to piggyback on that, I'll let you continue. I think it's very important if you're looking for the bounce back, right? You're trying to bounce back better, get better at doing things, right? So you have to have a rubric, a decision-making tree. How do I make these decisions? Kind of like he looked at what worked, what didn't. Take that away from your previous experiences if you have experiences.
Yeah.
Even if you were never an entrepreneur, take some of the things away and then evaluate it, overlay it over the business. Like, okay, I was good at work because I was the first one there. How can I apply this to now the new business? If I'm running a new business, okay, I was good at work because I put in extra effort. What do I need to do extra in the morning of this business? Just even little things like that. Or even how you make the decisions as far as like evaluating, like you said, silver tsunami, buying a new business. Okay, I need to know what their numbers are. I need to know do your worst case scenario numbers. People always want to, I didn't know this was a thing that I had to explain to people. You cannot do your math based on best case scenario.
Well, there's some of us optimists. All right, my wife calls me an optimist. We look at the numbers and we always look at the best case scenario.
So that's your opportunity, right? If it's been doing this X amount of years, okay, pick the worst year and look at the worst case scenario and then compare it to the industry standard and see where it lies as far as margins and all that. And then you have your best case scenario. Then you have a mean or median and a mean of both. Then you can evaluate at worst, what does it look like if, God forbid, this happens? Most likely it's going to look like this. And if we do what we're supposed to do and do it really well, we'll get here. But a lot of people just look at, but they made this and I can make this. Well, you're not them. Like, so you have to factor in. You might be better or you might be worse. Definitely. And you don't know that yet until you know that. So that's one thing I would say as far as evaluating any industry. Learn about it. Learn what they did right. What is different about you guys than others? Can you explain that to me? And sometimes, honestly, people can't articulate that. Some people are just like good at things and they don't know what they're good at or they got a little bit lucky, right? Until they step outside and go witness at the office. They're like, you're doing this wrong. You're doing that. No wonder. Okay, this is what I do right. And so you may have to go into that business as doing it well, see what they're doing, then go to another business and compare and be like, oh, that's why they're good. They don't do X, Y, and Z. These guys do. I need a model after this.
I think that's definitely a good tie-in to that point. But I'll also add on, secondly, that don't get too emotionally attached
That's number
to anything that you're evaluating.
Yes.
right?
That's a big one.
Yeah, sometimes you know,
feel good.
we were doing a couple of deals this past week with some clients, and it's kind of at that point of drawing up legal documentation. So what I told them is that, hey, all this due diligence, you know, talk about you do this, I do this, you know, the seller does this, all that stuff is beautiful and means almost nothing. Because once the legal papers are drawn, that is the deal.
Yes.
Not anything else that you might have talked about.
Correct.
Right.
Not all the expectations that they told you and promised you and so on and so forth. You don't know. Because if
That's
you
why
don't,
they need you.
well, no, they need an attorney.
Well, I'm saying to numbers wise.
Yes. So when those legal papers get drawn up, that is also another place where you can mitigate those setbacks, because then you need to truly pull yourself out emotionally and say, okay, you know, lawyer, can you help me evaluate what this says? Because they told me that they were going to, or they were going to leave whatever it is, right? Is it there on the documentation? Right. Because you can go into things and sign the wrong documents, and from the start, you're already set up for failure.
Yeah. Another thing I'll add in terms of bouncing back, you know, is just to have the mentality that, you know, failure is not the end. It's the tuition that you pay to elevate to the next level.
That's right.
You know, because yes, the stylist business that we wanted to run, it didn't go well because I didn't have the right personnel. But that doesn't mean that I'm going to give up.
No.
You know, now I knew what to do. Right. So the next business venture that I got into, it was a tech business. And I told myself, unless I have a technical founder, I'm not starting any business, because I understood. Exactly, right. And because I understood
CPA from no CPA.
I mean,
I understood how costly it is to run a tech company, and just having somebody with that technical background helps tremendously.
I would imagine.
So just because you fail doesn't necessarily mean that it's the end. You just have to look at it like, have I gained something from this? You know, because if the answer is yes, then you can go take yourself to the next level. But if you haven't gained anything, then I'm sorry, that's on you.
Yeah, that is on you. I would say one thing I would say is that from business to business, one thing I realized is that you need to build a rapport and support system. Because, again, you know, I'm quoting Tony Robbins, but I think he said proximity is power. Right? If you're proximal to the right people, you know, say I'm doing something else and I know that you're good for advice, and you may know somebody that knows somebody, or help me get feedback on this, and you're solid, you know, we can combine our knowledge for something great. Another thing is I'm with him on the people. Man, the people, the sooner you learn what he just said about the people in any business. And some people get lucky and they don't even understand how lucky they are, because they just start a business and they have the right people right off the bat, and then they bring more right people like themselves and build your team, and they're just like, you know, like, yeah, we don't have a da-da-da-da-da, and they're like, they don't understand because they haven't had to go through what the rest of people who run into the wrong people first, who bring all the wrong people on board, and you're in a new business, so you don't even know what it should look like in your business, and then later on you find out you have to rebuild and re-get the core. But it's very important to make sure you allowing yourself with the right people within your business. And sometimes you don't know what that looks like. That is why I think it's very important, whatever industry you are, you need to go outside of your business into someone who's done something in a similar industry and other industries, and see what their employees are doing. Then you can measure, okay, or their team is doing. Then you can measure and say, my team sucks. We don't suck. The business is good. Our team sucks. And that's sometimes
could be bad.
The issue. It's like you're failing not because you have something bad, but because the people are not great. So that is very important for any business. People do businesses with people, not necessarily with whatever you have.
That's it.
So
now, as we're wrapping up, one thing I do want to add on what everyone here has said is that our failures, our setbacks really should be looked as, writing on pages of our playbooks as entrepreneurs.
That's right.
It's not something that we're going to hold us back. It's not something that we're also going to let it, affect anything else that we do. But if we learn from those setbacks, if we learn and build from there or fail forward, as some of the folks have said here, we're only going to build that next thing stronger. And when that setback happens in the next thing, we write it on our playbook, and then we keep going and we keep learning from it.
Every single experience that it's part of my story.
There's no wasted experience.
It's what makes me who I am today.
That's right.
So I really like Alan, your perspective. I like your perspective as well. You guys have anything else you want to add?
No, man, I just say, fall for it, fail for it, learn from it. Don't let it beat you down, and you can win.
And we want to hear from you guys as well. If there's a story or something that you're currently doing now to just basically position yourself to be able to level up after a setback, we want to hear from you. Drop it in the comment section. Please, if you feel like somebody is going through something right now, share this video with them. You never know how it might impact them. Really appreciate you guys for tuning in. Until next time, where can they find us? Go Beyond the Grind.
That's right.
Peace out, guys.
Peace.
Feeling stuck? Yeah. What's going on, beautiful people? Welcome to another episode of Beyond the Grind.
BTG!
If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. And please don't forget to hit the subscribe button so that you don't miss out on any of our future content. Our podcast is for those who want to go beyond the grind. My name is Kay.
I'm Alan.
And I'm Tosin. And today, we're going to be talking about those of us that feel stuck. All right. I'm going to personalize it a little bit because I've been a CPA now for
forever.
Since birth.
It feels like it. I jumped in quite early because in college, when I came here for college, moved to the U.S. for college, one of the deacons in our church owned his own CPA firm. And my parents like, you need to go and work for him. You need to go and work for him.
That's the thing about Nigerians. You can only be like 2 or 3 things. Accountant, a doctor, or lawyer.
So I was like, okay, no problem. I guess there's no, one of these Starbucks jobs, like these college type of jobs. So I dove both feet, both hands, everything into the accounting industry way back in 2000 and was that 4 or something like that? So dating myself here a little bit here.
2004.
Yeah.
Yeah. Were you 5?
I started college in 2003.
That's true. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So at least I got a free year or whatever. But I'm saying that because over these years that I've been building and kind of building my expertise in, the CPA world, whether it's, accounting, tax, strategy, being a CFO or controller, fractional to our clients, consulting, building up our clients and their businesses and so on. It feels like I've gotten to that point where almost like my calling is now I can see something different from my calling. Rather than I want to be an entrepreneur in accounting, there's this call, there's this itch that has been coming. And it's really by looking at, it came about because of the...
Perhaps a need?
Well, yes, we can call it a need, but it's like the problem. It's like I'm trying to solve a problem that I see with those around me. I don't know if it's a wide problem, but it's a problem in the network that I have, right? In the clients that I have. And what I've been unintentionally building was to be that center of trust for a lot of different people, right? And with that, I get a lot of feedback. Not just we talk about a lot of stuff outside of accounting and taxes and so on, because being a center of trust, you unintentionally also become a psychologist or a psychiatrist or a confidant and so on. So you tend to hear these issues, and I felt like there was many issues that were pretty much like cut across even different types of people from different backgrounds, whether male, female, old, young, whatever it is. And many of it just revolved around, hey, what if we can work together?
Yes.
So I don't want to give off too much of a secret of where I'm going.
You got us. That's a mark of a good storyteller, right? Leave us right here, right?
No, I gotta, because I don't want to give too much of this next project, this next phase.
Okay.
But what I'm now feeling
giving teasers, previews,
trailers. maybe it might spill out. Maybe it might spill out. But where I am now, I feel like I'm at a crossroad.
Okay.
Right.
Feeling stuck.
That's right. Because on one hand, we've got an awesome CPA firm.
Right.
We've got great people.
Right.
It's doing well. We've got great clients. Yes, we're still looking to grow, and we still have our issues. We're growing. We've got processes, all kinds of things still moving. But there are this other project that is burning in my soul that it's like you need to get this.
Yeah.
I know
you need to get this going.
Yeah.
And if you don't get this going, will you feel fulfilled,
or will you regret that you missed that time or opportunity to do it?
That's correct.
I feel you on that.
So I'm feeling
Sleepless?
well, bruh, I sleep well. There's one thing about me, like there's very few things that will take my sleep, because I need to wake up the next day
And function.
no, not just function. I need to be like knocking
thrive.
home runs.
You need to thrive.
The
I
next
get it.
day. So I need to sleep, wake up at my 5 a.m., go to the gym, look at all these other crazy people that woke up even before me to come to the gym.
By the
I feel
way,
like, okay, you know
we
what?
want to say we're proud of you for being consistent and keeping it up.
Thank you very much. I'm getting my Allen swole on, all right, as y'all can see.
But I can actually relate with that, because back in 2018, I was in the same boat, when it comes to feeling stuck. Most people know I went to school for accounting, and I graduated.
What?
You didn't
I'm
know
kidding.
that?
I knew.
I went to school for accounting, graduated, and my first job was a financial analyst. And for some reason, it just didn't match with my personality. But I was like, you know what? Let me get the experience. And I did it for a couple of years. And eventually, I got bored, because I'm like, everybody around me came to the office and said, I can't wait till it's Friday. And I'm like, is this really the type of life that I want to live?
Yeah.
And I got introduced, from there, I got introduced to the mortgage industry. And I think that's when I kind of like got to learn a lot about, mortgage banking, right? I started doing selling mortgage-backed securities. So for context,
That's how it cracked. You're the one who led to that.
2008.
2000. You said 2008, right?
I said
And shortly
He's part of
after,
him. He's part of
him. I heard 2008.
But mine was basically, I was basically a day trader, right? So essentially what I was doing was, because I was, as a mortgage company, you're always trying to balance your risk exposure, right? So what do I mean by risk exposure? I'm saying, like, you got got to have a balance of people 700 score and above, people 600 to 699, and people below, right? So my job was to look at our portfolio, and I'm buying and selling mortgage-backed securities based off of what we currently have, in our portfolio. So if you get a letter in the mail saying, hey, you're no longer, going to be paying to your mortgage to Wells Fargo, you're going to be paying to Bank of America. That was me in the background, buying and selling. But I did that, and I was making really good money. But I got to a point where I felt like it just wasn't it. To the point that, Sunday night, I wasn't excited for Monday morning, not because of feeling anxious, but just because I wasn't being challenged. I didn't feel motivated. I didn't feel like I was making an impact, and I didn't feel fulfilled. Right. And I think when I got to that state, it just became, okay, what do I do?
Yeah. I'm in the moment feeling it. What did you do?
I mean, I did a lot of things, but I thought you was going to tell your story.
Oh, you giving us another preview?
I'll tell you later.
Yeah. Okay. Well, okay. So stuck for me, it's been like being stuck has been.
Unless you never felt stuck before, then we can understand because
Alan be back hundreds, hundreds.
No, I feel like you can ask anyone that knows me, as you guys know. I always feel like at some point I go through phases of feeling stuck and unstuck, feeling stuck and unstuck. But not that many times, but a few times through career. But for me, I would say the first real time I felt stuck, because I feel like in life I'm 0 to 100. I don't really, it's hard for me when you guys say feel stuck. I can't really stay in the going 50 miles an hour. That's not how I'm like toasting, like he said, like I'm itching. I got it. I have to do it, so I'm at 100 or 0. So I think throughout life, I always felt like this is my purpose, and I had this whole plan for myself. And, like when I got to being a dentist, I knew I was going to open my own practice. I just didn't know, or I was going to be in some sort of ownership. I felt that way just because I saw how things were going. I saw how my classmates were going. I saw that this is what I want to do. And I just didn't know what it looked like. Right. So I actually tried to be a partner in at a couple other offices, but I saw how it was structured, and it was in some of at the time, not every office, but at the time, the offices I looked for, it just felt like I was still being an associate doing 10 times more work and earning the same with just my name on the door and no autonomy. So I didn't go that route. I ended up deciding I'm going to do my own thing. And when I told my classmates I was going to do that, I was like, hey, I'm going to move to Dallas, and I'm probably going to open my own office next year.
Where were you living before?
I was living in D.C.
You came from, we came from
Howard.
Yeah, you knew that.
That's where he went to.
And they were like, yeah, you're crazy. You're great. What? We just got a degree. And I was like, look, man, I've been working this summer. Mind you, it was just a summer after we finished everything. And they were like, yeah. I was like, I don't know if this is for me. I'm going to give it this year. And if not, I'm going to be out. And one thing about me, if I say I'm going to actually do it, know that it's happening. If I'm for real, I've already primed y'all about it. So next time one of my friends is like, bro, we called you and you were like, hey, man, you want to go get some drinks? I was like, I'm in Dallas
already.
Are you here? Are you in Dallas? Like, what? How'd you end up in Dallas? I've been telling you for months I'm leaving. And then he was like, fast forward another few months, like, yeah, man, I'm trying to associate it. I was like, oh, man, I'm opening the office. They're like, what? Like, and for me, it was the autonomy. I needed the autonomy. I needed a purpose. I felt like I was stuck in situations where I worked at. I felt like it was holding me back from hitting my potential, to being able to grow in my skills, in my treatment, control, and kind of, I just felt like at certain organizations, there were rules to how they did things. And sometimes I felt like, okay, is this in the best interest of the patient, of me, of the staff? Like, I felt like my hands were tied. And then I couldn't, when you're an owner, you learn a lot, from marketing to managing people to all this. And I felt like, I couldn't really do things to that extent, and I was limited. So I felt like it was limiting my growth and my impact, like you said.
So it wasn't about the money; it was about the autonomy.
The money was a plus.
Okay.
But to be honest, I could have made the same money not being an owner.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's 100% factual.
I can testify.
I think my skills. I knew what I wanted to do, and I knew I needed to have a lot of skills to get there, and that's what I ended up doing throughout dental school, residency. When I came out, I took a bunch of courses, advanced this, advanced that, but it was ultimately being in control of my own destiny, having the autonomy to, if I decide like, hey, I don't want to be here for this amount of time, I can go. If I decide, hey, I want to do all these treatment and start to finish, the patient can see me, you know, and I can help them do what they want. I can train my staff how I want. Just a lot of autonomy
You get to
where
set
I
the
felt,
culture.
yeah, I get to set the culture. I get to be the type of boss that people want to be around and stay with, versus like, yeah, we like you, you're the associate, but I hate this organization.
But let me ask you this: what was the time difference between when you graduated first till you opened up your first practice?
Less than 2 years.
Less than 2
I
years.
went to residency. I was done. I worked. I moved. I was getting my job. While the place was being built, I was boom.
Okay, so you didn't just do a 360 and just quit and just go start like
No.
you graduated.
I graduated dental school. I did residency for a year. I was thinking about doing OMFS, which is oral maxillofacial surgery. I decided I didn't want to go that route. At the end of that year, so I graduated. I was a dentist. I did residency, was optional.
Okay.
So I get all my surgical skills and all the other advanced skills. And then I took a lot of courses in that time. From the time I decided I wanted to open my own practice, I was an associate. But in that year between that, after residency, I was like, I got to take all the extra advanced stuff that I didn't get in residency, sedation this, ortho this, whatever. And I got to find a place. And then I moved, and I was like, I moved to Dallas. I was like, boom, I'm going to find a place right now. And it was like go time. Because to me, I had like, in my mind, I was like, if I'm going to do this, I'm giving dentistry a decade of my life and going hardcore. Not saying I'm not going to do it longer, but it's getting a decade of my life and see what happens if I really give it all that I have.
Right.
And then if it doesn't pan out, then, you know, there's always other things. I mean, I have an MBA in finance. I might go join y'all, you know? So, but that's a little bit long, but you know, I get feeling stuck, but I think you gotta evaluate, like, what do I want? What is making me feel stuck? Can I achieve this? And to your testimony, it's like, it's the feeling you have of like, people are very stuck and scared to move on. But if you have the opportunity to do it, obviously plan for it, but you gotta, in my opinion, you gotta do it, because you're 10 years gonna fly by and you still feel stuck and you didn't do anything.
Well, before we tell them about jumping out, I think maybe let me throw this question to Kay. Like, how did you identify that you were feeling stuck and you weren't able to make that impact?
Yeah.
Like, what were those things? Give me something a little bit more concrete that was happening at that moment.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like I mentioned before, I wasn't feeling challenged. And to be more specific, I remember we had a meeting, right? And it's a all hands meeting. And usually with all hands meeting, like what anybody will tell you, like one of my favorite things to do is to have strategy conversations, because this is where you really, really get to, you know, you get the best of me, right? Because I throw something out, you challenge me back and forth. And I remember when I first got to the company, I was doing a lot of that. You know, I was heavily involved. That's actually how I got to my position, because I came in not having any experience. I came in as an analyst, you know, and within a couple of years, within 2-3 years, I worked my way up into leadership, right? And I realized that while we were in meetings, I wouldn't even participate. I would be quiet. I was just, you know, I felt a sense of stagnation where
understimulated.
Yeah. You know, and then on top of that, there's this need for me to feel like, because I would look at what everybody else is doing, and I saw how their work, how it made them feel good about themselves, how they feel like they were making an impact.
Yeah.
And only thing I can think of is all I'm doing is sending people letters in the mail saying that they're not paying to Wells Fargo anymore. They're paying to Bank of America. You know.
Felt mundane.
I mean, at the beginning, I was excited because I was working with a lot of loan officers where they had direct impact with people's, American dream, home ownership,
ability to buy,
right. And because I was part of the lock desk team, I was part of that. There was some sort of excitement, but then it got to a point where, okay, yes, this is cool, but how am I directly impacting? And is this actually in line with what I want to be known for? Right? Because it gets to a stage where you're trying to build a career versus legacy.
Yeah.
And for me, you're slowly getting to late 30s and you start thinking like, okay, is it about the paycheck or is it about feeling really, really good about what you do? Feeling excited. So for me, it was the lack of participation in strategy meetings. It was, me coming to work and thinking about outside of work, what's happening. And then 3, like when I leave work, I feel like that's when my brain really starts, goes into motion because now I'm really thinking about ideas and what to do, right? That's how I knew I was stuck and I was checked out.
Yeah.
Nice. I think for me, the point, I might not call it feeling stuck.
Okay.
Right. It was maybe more of a higher level, higher calling.
Okay.
Let's say it that way.
Yeah, because stuck can be interpreted as you don't know what to do next, right?
Correct.
Okay, good. Because I didn't know what to do next.
So I guess from my perspective, it's not that I don't know what to do next, but I feel like there's just a lot of logistics that need to happen for me to be able to do this next phase.
Yes.
Like somebody to replace your current spot?
Let him explain.
It may be somebody to replace me, but we've got a great team.
Okay.
Right. Probably good processes, an understanding of the clients too. Somebody to replace me would be nice if we can, if we can find them at the right price. You know what I mean? If you out there, reach out.
So it sounds like what's going on now is that you know where you need to go, but you feel like your foot is caught in something and you gotta free it so you can go there.
Thank you. Great example.
That's kind of what you need.
Great example. All right. But you're also worried that, if you let go
Not
of this
you.
I'm worried. Sorry. Yeah, I am worried that if I let go of, this one or the day-to-day involvement that I'm in right now, like I'm a little afraid that it's going to
crumble
change.
and
it's going to crumble.
But you can't hold on to both.
Well, some of us
issue.
We gotta hold on to both because one
for
is
long.
bringing money,
Let me say
one
that
is
for
a
long.
dream.
You can't hold on to both for long. At some point, for one to rise, you have to focus your strength on one, on the other, right?
Correct.
Because at this point, you're just juggling.
So I don't know. I mean, I think it's.
But there are ways to mitigate that because
That's what he's trying to do. Hand it off to your hand so he can hold this with 2 hands.
Obviously, with Alan, because I was really shocked when Alan said, "Oh, I'm already in Dallas." He didn't have something big established already. Does that make sense?
No.
For me, I'm just an employee. So if I leave today, on to the next one. They're going to be interviewing the next person the next day.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But for you have something that you've built.
Yeah.
You spend a majority of your adulthood, or at least outside
working adulthood,
building this thing.
Yeah.
And now it's time to, go to that next phase of your life. But you also remember that this current phase of your life as a family man with a wife and kids.
Bills. Don't forget the bills.
Living in a great place in the DFW area. You got to be careful on how you maneuver.
He has to just strategy. I think it's planning, right?
I would also add, there are some great relationships that we've built.
Yes.
But one thing is that I believe once I mean, not everybody is going to jump on board on this new venture that I'm going into.
Yeah.
Or at least that I'm
already in it, right?
Hey, come on in. Come on in.
Just making sure as you were continue.
Because not everybody might jump into that next venture with us, but I think they will see how it relates
Yes.
to what we currently do now and how we've been pivoting. I think I've just been blessed that somehow I think God has been working somehow in our business to where a few years ago, and I mentioned this on previous episodes, like we started restructuring the firm to where now our senior managers are having their own customer base. Right.
You eat what you kill.
Yeah. It's not all Tosin's clients anymore. Right. We've got your clients, your clients, your clients, your clients, and I just help you execute with your clients. Right. You might have questions.
It's like a franchise model, essentially, right?
Almost.
He's consulting within his own firm.
Hey, he charge a little fee.
They charge a fee.
Now everybody doesn't have to come directly to me, and I triage it, and then I give it to somebody else, and then they give it back to me, and I just become a huge bottleneck, right? So we've been doing this for now a couple of years. It's working beautifully. Now, even when new clients are coming on board, let's say you were to refer a new client to us, it would just go to the manager that's handling you. It doesn't have to come to me to close that client. You have a relationship with the senior manager that you're working with, and you just say, hey, yo, Meg, I got a new person.
And I can vouch for him because he's already
working with you.
Yeah.
Right. So that type of thing has been happening. And I think that's why I said maybe I've been blessed. I definitely have been blessed that somebody has been cooking.
So things are falling into place for this bigger and better, not necessarily better or bigger, but this new opportunity for you, right?
Well, not new opportunity, but this new phase.
That's what I want to say. Right. So they've been falling into place, and now you're trying to basically structure everything so you can leave everything intact and be great as you go into this new phase.
Not just leave everything behind, but still find a way to make sure everything is functioning, because the CPA firm is going to be a big part of this next phase.
It goes hand in hand.
Correct.
So
correct.
I got a question. Obviously, I mentioned earlier that our podcast is mainly for those who want to go beyond the grind, right? And that's the ambitious employee or the business owners, right?
Right.
Obviously, you've given stories about you being a business owner and how you want to, take that leap. I've talked about mine, how, I'm that ambitious employee and I want to take that next leap, right? For folks that are watching out there, what would you say, what strategy can they implement to help that transition be a lot smoother? At least to give them a sense of mitigating the risk as much as possible.
Alan, you want to take
I would say for me, it's a little bit easier to decide the plan for it once you understand where you're going. So where you're going. When you know the destination, you're more excited, and so it's gonna be easier for you to do the research first. If you want to leave something behind, again, we always talk about you got bills to pay. So you have to create either some kind of buffer, right? Either you create a nest egg or start savings, cut going out to the bar or whatever. I don't know. Wherever the money is going that it could be cut, you need to cut that and put that aside so that you have enough. 2, you need to identify once you've identified where you want to go, you need to make a plan on how to get there. And the fact is, like, what is it going to take this new phase to be self-sufficient and sustaining? How much money do I need? Do I need employees? All that. Do I need if you're going to build a new app, what tech guys do I need?
Do you need a K?
What do you need? Find someone who's done what you did. What did y'all do to get here? Okay, let me estimate it. Then again, you kind of do a quick little trial, and you don't really just want to jump ship into something new unless there are times.
Alan.
No, I planned. I told you guys I planned this. I've been telling everybody for a year.
Executed, and they didn't even know.
Right. So you just have to have your own conviction and understand. Just like I have friends out there who saying they want to do X, Y, and Z, but they never do it. Yeah. And I say, you can do this. Why have you not done it? And the key thing that it boils down to is that they say, I don't have time. You going on dates, you going to the bar, you hanging out, like, you know, people who want to get where you're at, even if they went on a date, did all that, they come home at 2 a.m., they staying up to 8 a.m. getting it done. Make the time for that.
They do the 8 to 5 and then 5 to 8.
Right. It's just, the main thing is carving out your time, doing your own research first to see if it's a viable option. I think for the most part, the hardest part is for people, I feel stuck. Where do I go? So that's hard for any of us to tell you. You have to find what your motivations is. You don't have to love what you do, but you have to like it. You can't hate it.
So for me, I would say you first have to understand, are you in a temporary rut?
That's
or is this a greater calling?
Right.
Because a temporary rut, I would define it as, hey, I want a new job.
You're burnt out.
You know, it's like, okay, I've gotten to the peak in this job, so I need to jump over to where I see there are more opportunities or I can grow more and so on and so forth. Then there's that stuck where it's like between what you, the path that you're on and a new calling,
right,
or a higher calling, or an upgrade,
more aligned, to
Not
where
even-
you are right now in the phase of your life.
No, it's a complete shift. This is a calling. Right. You know, we've got stories of folks, you know, hey, they were business owners and they jumped into ministry type of thing. That's like you got to figure out, that's stuck. Like you got to figure out, am I jumping into my calling or am I staying where I'm at here?
It's very hard.
Right. So you've got to figure out, one, are you in a temporary rut? And can it be fixed by, okay, maybe let me make minor changes, like jumping into another job and doing this and that, you know, to see if I can feel unstuck. Or is it really that life-changing calling that's making me stuck? Because if it's the latter, then there's a lot more that goes into it, a lot more planning, I feel, that needs to go into it.
For me, the advice that I would give folks out there is if you're feeling stuck, start small. You know, maybe something on the side that helps you to feel like, hey, is it something I can actually do? Maybe take on a project, you know, work on that project to see, okay, do I have a good feel for this, right? Touching on what Alan said about, you know, the skill set, you know, learning new skills to make sure that you're actually equipped to be able to, you know, do that next thing that you want to do. And I feel like if you just strategically just take it one phase at a time, you'll feel a lot more confidence. But that's what I think. I'll let you close it out, Alan.
Yeah. Well, thank you for watching another podcast of, what are we called?
Beyond the Grind.
Yeah.
Right.
So our podcast for the dreamers who execute, you know, for the employees on a mission and for the entrepreneurs and business owners that are wanting to go beyond the grind. We just want to close this out, telling you guys to go ahead and live bold, grind smart, and go beyond the grind.
That's right. You can find us on gobeyondthegrind.com.
.com.
Yeah.
Until next time.
Peace.
Peace.
Bye.